Moikka kaikille and welcome to my video. Today in our video we're going to be talking about homesickness. So I was finally able to kind of like get my head around it and zoom into the topic. I actually was able to sit down with my very good friend Maddie and we talked for like 40 minutes about the topic, and it kind of like was able to ground me into the topic and the way of how I want to talk about this. So here we go. First of all, if you want, I do have that conversation we had with Maddie on a voice recording. So if in the future you're interested on like maybe hearing that, it's possible. He gave me the rights to like share it with you guys. It will be in the future though, because I don't have the equipment to edit that yet, so hopefully soon I can do that. But for now, it's just only going to be me talking about this, but I'm also sharing his view or like ideas that popped up in the conversation. The way I want to approach this is very much based on 3 questions, and I've written them down. Hi, Wilhelmina from the future. So something happened when I was downloading the footage that I just had from the start, and I have to record most of the questions again that I went through. There's some left, thankfully, but yeah, so different time. As you can see, the lighting has changed and my clothing has changed, so technology, right? But they say that the second time the footage is better, so hopefully that's the case. So the first question is, how have you noticed that homesickness affects you? And what I personally have noticed is that I will get a very strong emotional reaction to something new and scary, and that's when like I start reacting to that. And that's when after some time I realized like, oh, I was homesick as a starter, and that's why my reaction to that became so big and intense. And for example, I've actually already kind of mentioned this in one of my videos, but for example, when I was in Australia, after the first months, I freaked out about money, and I got very like emotional and was crying and stressing over about money to my host sister. And now looking back to that time, it wasn't really the money, it was more of the unfamiliar aspect of the money, because you know there was a new currency and I wasn't used to using the Australian dollar. I had this idea that everything was cheaper and affordable because the Australian dollar was less than the euros and I was using euros. And in the first 3 months I actually ended up like using a lot of my savings, and I freaked out like, you know, I can't do this because I'm not even able to like maintain my financial support, and this was like silly of me for even going to Australia because clearly I don't know how to take care of myself. But at the time my host sister sat down with me and we like kind of like talked about it, and she was like, don't worry about it, it's okay, like everything is still okay. Like you can still sit down, go through your finances, think about it. It's not worth of like ruining your whole idea about everything, because you know I was very devastated about this money factor, and I was just like, you know, it doesn't even make sense why I'm here because clearly I can't take care of myself. And she like talked me through. And similar thing has happened later on when for example it's been hard to make friends. It happened also in Australia. First it took me a long time to make friends, well not a long time, like a couple of weeks, longer than usual. because of like language barriers, and I wasn't as comfortable with speaking English with English speakers at the time. So it was very scary and nerve-wracking. So I felt like I wasn't going to be able to like create any kind of friends, and like I left all of my friends back at home. I just had started high school in Finland, so why would I rip that apart? But then one of my, like, there was a girl who also was doing an exchange year from Europe, and she was like, I have this international group, come with me, have lunch with us and see how it goes. Like, don't give up on like making friends yet. And I did, and then it ended up being like the group that I hanged out with, and I like met my best friend, and it was amazing. It was like I was about to give up, and like I thought like I was like all over my head and it wasn't worth it. But like just like giving it some time, it passed on. So to answer basically that question, I notice the homesickness in me when I react very intensely to something quite normal in my life. But because the normal that I'm thinking about is something created, is something that I'm used to in back home, and when it's not the same with that, I create this very intense emotional reaction to the new, scary, uncomfortable, different from routines that I've used to. So that's how I noticed it. And we also talked about it with Maddie, and he was kind of feeling the same way, that when it was something abnormal from what he was used to, he would kind of notice it in him. So how I think it's the easiest way to notice some homesickness in you is to pay attention how you react to things. So if you all of a sudden get very angry or emotional about something, really kind of like replace back yourself after you've felt that feeling, of course, and be like, okay, like why did I react so intensely to this thing? Like, why did I get so upset about the public transportation or something like that? Or why did I get so upset at work? Or why do I feel this way after my workday? And you might actually notice that it is because it was different from what you're used to. There's a cultural difference with how you work with your colleagues, or you are feeling lonely and sad because you don't have connections or friends, or it's harder to make friends in the new place, compared to having friends at home and having a good social like connection and knowing the social cues and cultural norms at work. And that's very, like, at least for me, a very good way of like pinpointing like, okay, these feelings are because of homesickness and because I'm going through something that I'm not used to, and it's breaking the normal pattern for me from what it was back home. And this might happen even if you like move in like in the country. Like if you move from another city to another city, it can change. Like if you move from the countryside to this like bigger cities, or the other way around, these cultural norms and ways can change, and it can cause the same kind of feeling as in when you move from the other side of the world. So it's something to keep in mind. This topic also kind of takes us to the second question, which was, what did you do then to cope with the homesickness? And it bases a lot on recognizing your feelings, looking into what creates the homesickness, why are you feeling very emotional to this thing, and then going from there. If it is that you feel very strong, you felt very upset about the finances like I did, then you sit down and think, okay, like what can I do? Like keep a journal, start paying more attention to your expenses, or like maybe get a part-time job if you're studying or something like that. Or just like learn more about the currency, like get a like maybe an app if there is, like to change the currency all the time. So every purchase that you have, you can like check how much it is in your like home country's currency or something like that. That's what usually I do here. If I'm unsure about the money, like if it's more or less than what I'm used to for a product, I just Google it and see how much I would pay in euros. And if that's something that I'm used to in Finland and I think it's okay, then I can purchase it. But if it's like something that I wouldn't use, I wouldn't spend on that particular product in Finland for that price, then I don't purchase it, something like that. This is for like a advice for like those logical kind of things. But if you notice that the reason why you're feeling homesick and very strongly about something is about like loneliness, cultural differences, in these cases, a lot of the time, giving yourself time is a big thing. Giving yourself the understanding of that it is going to be hard and it is going to be different and it will take time to get used to. And you just have to feel those feelings true. So I personally always, like, first of all, let myself feel the feelings when I'm going through them, and then go back and kind of do the rational thing of like thinking like, okay, like why was it this cost? And is this something I could work on? And so on. And going back to why you moved in the first place is always very helpful in these like more abstract homesickness reasons. So why did you come to this country? Why did you move to this city? Is it because you wanted to experience something new? You wanted to go out your comfort zone and like seize the world or so? Or was it just because you knew that your life would have a better quality for moving to the new country, or because of the studies or something like that? And kind of like then thinking, do these still apply? Am I in a better place? Am I here still because I want to provide myself a life that is better, and the only way to get that is living in here? Or is it like, am I still looking for that new experience? Should I like, have I not just yet gotten to that experience that I want to feel, and so on? And if the answer for these questions is that I actually don't have a better life here, I do prefer the comfort and the stability that I've had in my old country, it's okay for you to go back. But if you're like, well, no, this is like still, these reasons still apply, then you get more motivation to stick it true. And like, because when you give yourself time and you stay in that country and you go through these obstacles, you will eventually create a new norm. You will create a new home and find a place that you're going to be comfortable in, even though it first feels so overwhelming and big and crazy. And like, if for example you realize that you're feeling homesick because you're lonely, you don't have as much friends as you used to, then challenge yourself. It sucks, I know, it's very anxious and it's terrifying, because like different languages, different cultures, and all the reasons, I totally hear you out. But I recommend doing it so much. Like, find something that you like, find something that you're very passionate, and go there. Like, find a hobby, or start going regularly to places like the library if you love to read, and like kind of find these places where you can be around the people that you want to assimilate with. And that way you will slowly start building up that base of confidence and social support that you need, and that will then help you with the loneliness. And a big thing is to kind of, like, even though home and comfort and that is important, it is important to kind of let it fade. Because if you hold on to that familiar feeling and that those things that you're missing, it is very hard to keep on going in the future. And that kind of brings us to the third question, which is, was there something that definitely made the homesickness worse? So what I noticed that was definitely bad for me was that I kind of let myself linger in those feelings, the homesickness. I remember when I was in Slovenia, and I was only there for like 3 months. And around the second month I was there, I started feeling homesick. I kind of felt like I didn't want to be around, like make an effort being around my friends, or like it was too annoying, like the language difference was kind of like too much for me. And because I was only going to be there for one more month, I kind of gave up on like making an effort, and I started talking more with my family and with my friends. And me and Greg were like starting to date around that time, so I spent a lot of time like in that new relationship time instead of like experiencing that life there. And even though, like, don't get me wrong, relationship with Greg, I'm happy that I spent that time, because like we have a very good relationship, an amazing one. Side point. But now when I looked back to that time, I'm kind of sad that I didn't go out. I didn't keep on looking for those experiences, just because I was feeling homesick. I wanted to go back to school back in Finland, and I didn't feel like I needed to keep up with like going to these parties or like hanging out with these friends, because like, I was going to leave in a month, so like why should I? And I know for sure that I took away a lot of nice and amazing memories that I could have done, even though I knew I was still like leaving in a month. So that's something that I very much recommend looking into. Like, don't take away those new experiences and the possibilities of like creating relationships and friendship, and like basically don't take away the fix for the homesickness. Listen to yourself, listen to your emotions and feelings, and if you've given it a chance, opened up and tried it, but you're still uncomfortable, you don't have to stay and like force yourself to be in that country. You can always go back. That's completely fine. But don't let the old comfortable stuff hold you back from creating a new home and new experiences. And Maddie said the same. He's moved from another country to Denmark in his teenage years, and he said during the first years of his life in Denmark, he would travel back home a lot. So he would kind of go back to where it was comfortable and like use the extra time that he had being back home. And it made it harder for him to simulate himself into Copenhagen, and it took longer to find friends and get those connections and be part of the city. And he said that now, of course, because for him, the reason why he was in Copenhagen was so big that he was always going to stay, but now when he looks back, that made it harder to like settle down and feel home here. So once again, it's something that you kind of tag on to the comfort and the familiar feeling of what you left behind. It's easy for you to grab onto that something familiar from back home. And then if you only have your thoughts around that, it will be so much harder to feel okay and feel home, like home in the new country, because you're mentally in the old place. So I think that is like maybe the biggest thing that one should avoid, at least in my opinion and Maddie's, to like hold on to that old thing, especially if you want to stay in the new country. So if you feel like you're lonely and you can't make any friends, then find something that you're interested in. Find a place where you can create new connections and kind of throw yourself into those uncomfortable situations. Because the reality is that once you've done that, even though it's not easy at first, you will eventually, it will become a norm and it will become a routine, and you will make friends. You will create all these new connections and build a new life. Just like when you change schools and you start the first year to make friends, you have to talk to them and you have to try it out. And it's exactly the same thing when you move to another country or a new city. You have to put yourself out there, and it's not easy, it's hard, it's scary, it's anxious, but once you've taken the first step, it's so much easier to take the next one and just like create those new memories. Of course, given all of this, if you're only doing this for an experience, trying out, going and traveling for 1 year, it is completely okay to be like, okay, I've tried, it wasn't my thing, I want to go back. You can always go back, and that's the beauty of it, because then most likely you've gotten out from that country what you went there for. You wanted a new experience, you wanted to try out something new, and you did. And it's not shameful to go back and be like, I actually do want to be home and appreciate those things that I'm missing, and that's completely fine. But if you really want to move out and create a new life in another country, it means that you have to go against the uncomfort thing, kind of fade those connections and those feelings towards the old and the familiar, and reach out to the new stuff that's ahead of you. Well, I think that was all of the main stuff that I wanted to talk about. Please, if you feel strongly about this topic, share your experiences and how you feel about it. I would love to hear and read your comments about this. And also, if you think that I missed something, please like mention it out. I will definitely work on getting that voice recording out as in a podcast form, because I thought there was a lot of like very nice and deep conversation going on with me and Maddie, that I maybe wasn't able to put out in this video, but definitely I will work on that. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you liked it, leave a thumbs up, and it would be awesome if you can subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.